So now we've jointed one end of our plank. Something else we have to do is make sure that the face of the plank is flat. We can't guarantee that, but we want to make sure that regardless of the piece of wood we have a flat face. Now, some cuts when you purchase the wood are going to be smooth, sometimes they're rough. What we use to smooth out the face of a piece of wood is called a surface planer. Much like a jointer, the surface planer is going to have a large, fast spinning blade. The power is off and the machine is unplugged, so I'm touching. Woo, that's a sharp, heavy boy. It's going to spin thousands of revolutions per second and remove the face of the piece of wood off of this surface. You can see the surface underneath. Now, let me. Okay, so this particular planer has these heavy cast iron fingers that move up and down. They're going to help push the piece of wood into the table so that you get a nice flat, consistent cut. To set up your planer, first thing you're going to need is your plank, and you're going to need a tape measure or ruler or just something to measure the thickness of the piece of wood. So I get my tape measure, I measure it. Okay. Here we are at 3/4 of an inch. 3/4 of an inch right on the dot. And we're going to use this to adjust the height of this table. Now, as I spin this wheel, right now I'm counterclockwise spinning, and you should see the table is coming down ever so slightly. As I spin this, there are gears that are linked to these worm gears, basically like a screw, and it allows it to be lifted or lowered. So to the right of the wheel, we have a gauge, and this gauge has measurements on it. We are going to match those measurements to the measurement we just took on our piece of wood. You got a nice workout here. All right, so I've set it to 3/4 of an inch. You do not set this significantly shorter or thinner than your piece of wood because that's a lot of force needed and it's going to jam the machine. Your plank might get stuck. So, in general, just a tiny bit at a time. So, we've now measured a piece of wood. We've set the depth of this gap so that we can put the wood in. As a good guide, never put your hands on or over or around this table. You stop at the very front. So, what you're going to do is rest your workpiece on the surface, and you are going to push with your palm out. So you're going to push like this, and it's going to go into the machine. I have to turn the power on. Be right back. So now the power's on. I was going to do a jump cut, but I realized there was no countdown here. With the power on, let's see. We're going to have ourselves a push stick just in case it catches and we need to help it through. Ideally, it won't catch, but real life things catch. So we're going to remove that from there. I'm going to do my best to do this with just one hand. No, I'm not. I'm going to be safer. There we go. So I turn on the machine, and it's going to be loud. We also have a vacuum that's sucking up the dust. Now I'm going to rest it in flat hand like this. Put it in. I'm going to guide it in. I'm going to go to the back. We have now planed the top. I can feel it's smooth. Now what I'm going to do is plane the opposite side. I will now have a flat surface to rest on the table so I can guarantee a nice flat cut. But before I put it through again, I need to shrink the table height. I just removed a thin layer from one surface, so the piece is thinner now. To do this adjustment, you go back to the wheel and you complete a maximum of half a spin clockwise. That'll tighten it up half a turn. Always little bits. You can always do multiple passes. Now that I've done my half turn, I flipped my board. Safety glasses on, turn it on. Flat palm, in. Some planks work better than others. The second time I went through, it had a more consistent surface, so it didn't get caught or jammed. I didn't really need the push stick. Ideally, you don't need the push stick at all. And to prevent needing it, you can actually give yourself a little extra, when you go to set the height the same, give yourself a little extra height so that it doesn't grab into the piece of wood so much. One other thing, the grain. When you go to plane your piece of wood, you want the grains pointing in the direction of the cut. So right now, you see the grain is this way, so it goes in this way. I do not put a plank in with the grain this way. It's kind of like a cross cut. We never do that. This would be terrible because you need a kind of long plank, definitely like 1.5 feet minimum, and you want to be with the grain. That's it.